Musicville, Green European Opera.
Hello everyone, I'm Gabriela. I am a part of Lab 852, a team from Croatia, one of the 3 countries that are participating in the project, the other 2 being Slovenia and Austria. And I wish you a very warm welcome to the first online lecture in the Musicville project. This lecture is recorded, as Carola said, and the playback is going to be available on the Musicville YouTube channel. So you guys keep your eyes peeled for the YouTube video coming later. And now, as a premiere, I'm going to share my screen and play a short little video that explains a little bit more about Musicville and what the goals of the projects are. So hang on a second. Here it is. Can everyone see that I'm sharing the screen? Good. Here we go.
Musicville, Green European Opera. Musicville is a series of musical and visual events that are held in European rural areas and thus contribute to the refreshment of their economic and social lives, as well as the development of sustainable tourism practices. How to connect art with the idea of sustainability or create new businesses while taking care of the environment? Musicville offers answers to these questions. 3 residency programs will be organized in selected rural sites in Austria, Slovenia, and Croatia, where the participants and mentors will develop their ideas. Throughout the 2-year duration of the project, artists and the audiences will partake in different activities such as online lectures, study visits, and residencies, with everything leading up to the final presentation in each country, the Green Opera. Calling all artists from different backgrounds and disciplines. Want to become a part of Musicville? Find the open call terms and how to apply on the Musicville website, www.musicville.org. Meet our creative directors. Sara Renner is an award-winning musician and architect from Zagreb, Croatia, acclaimed for her eclectic sound, blending multiple musical genres and vibrant live performances. Vasko Atanasovski is a saxophonist and flutist from Slovenia, known for his cross-genre collaborations with world-famous jazz, rock, classical, and traditional musicians, and a masterful approach to all styles of music. Carola Sakotnik works beyond art. Her multiple awarded work called Future Skills Farming creates culture at the intersection of art, business, and society. Follow the project on our website and social media platforms: musicville.org, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
So now that we've seen this video, I also have a little bit more information before I hand the word over to Ana. As you have seen in the video, the goal of Musicville is to fuse different art forms and expressions into one contemporary production that spans 3 countries. I must reiterate that the open call for artists to participate is still open. So if you or anyone you know is interested in being a part of Musicville, you can visit the website musicville.org, where there are steps to apply to the project. You will also find more information about all the locations and the project itself. So in this online part of Musicville, we're going to have 6 lectures, but we do use the term lecture rather loosely. We do learn about practices that are related to Musicville and the concept, but this is also a place where we can gather and have conversations and share information. So feedback is welcome. As Carol already explained, we would like to minimize distractions during Ana's presentation, so the participants should keep their microphones muted unless they have a question, and then you can raise a hand using the function and participate in the talk in that way. There will be a Q&A section at the end, so if you would like to keep your questions to the end, that's fine. If you think of something in the moment, just raise the hand and we'll have a chat and conversation that way. And now I will introduce today's speaker. She is Ana Ablamonova. She's a director at Operomanija production house from Lithuania. And today she will tell you more about the work that they do and how they manage to bring opera to contemporary audiences and how to elevate the art form. Ana, the stage is yours.
So, hello everyone. I was invited to make a lecture, but I'm not a lecturer. And I think that the best thing I can do is to share my experience, because nobody taught me to produce opera, to create contemporary opera, and everything what I learned and everything what was done, it was the constant process of learning by doing. So I think the best what I can do is to share our experience, what we have done through those almost 16 years. And I hope it might inspire you and maybe give some ideas of how contemporary opera could be created, and also ideas and also understanding that opera is not so dangerous animal, and you can work with that. Yes, and it's a huge opportunity for the creative process. My personal background, I have two backgrounds. I'm a choir conductor originally. One of my educations is choir conductor, and another education is in arts management. I'm musical manager, and somehow I became a pure producer of contemporary opera, and it happened around 16 years ago when I was a last year student at the Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre, and together with my colleagues, different artists, musicians, singers, stage directors, whoever needed to make an opera, we decided to create operas. And our first project was the first festival of short operas, where we created and staged 6 short operas. Short, I mean, duration of the pieces was like from 20 to 35 minutes, really short pieces. And in fact, that was a big inspiration for our community, which was at the time about 100 people, or maybe even more. Just imagine how many people you need to create an opera to develop this idea, because in fact the onlyest place or the onlyest way how we could work in this genre in Lithuania, where I come from, was to create our own platform, because the other option, it was a big state national opera and ballet theater, which you probably know. Most of those theaters, they stage Verdi's, Puccini's, Aida's, Traviata's, and that's it. So there is no room for big creativity, and especially creativity of those people who are creating opera. I mean, composers, set designers, or I don't know, architects. It is much more about singing, about music, that traditional one. So we have created our festival, our first short opera festival, Noah. And after that, we realized that it might be an amazing sphere where we can develop this, that community and that connections between different artists, and even more, not just artists, but also scientists, because many people were involved in that process. And after the first festival, we have established an administrative body, which is called Operomanija. And I think for first 5 years we were doing each year our festival, and it was like squirrels running around. You make 5-6 new premiere, you present them in the frames of the festival, you make the festival, and right next day, you start thinking about new operas, new 5-6 operas. And for 5-6 years, it took us a lot of energy. And at the same time, we realized that step by step, we are creating an audience in Lithuania, and perhaps that might be the place where we can present our operas not only once, but repeat them. And especially for artists, it was quite painful if they work a lot on one production, and after premiere, there is nothing happening with that project, because you put a lot of efforts, invest a lot of money, and it's quite complicated working in NGO field, having no space, no funds, develop this as a system. So we decided that maybe for the 5th edition of the festival, we should select the best productions which we did, and make a showcase festival of those best productions, which would be done even better. And at the same time, interesting thing happened. Our Lithuanian government haven't supported this idea. And besides that, at those times we were already, we had in our so-called repertoire about 25 operas. There is such international competition called Music Theatre Now, if you heard about this. It is organized by Music Theatre Now Network and International Theatre Institute. And we have applied there with 8 productions. And one of our productions won the competition and was invited to the finals to present it. It was opera for 10 singing cashiers, supermarket sounds, and piano. And just imagine, in one day we get reply from the Minister of Culture that they are not supporting our new edition of the festival, and exactly on the same day we get invitation from the ITI, International Theatre Institute, to come to Sweden and to present one of our operas because it got to the finals. And that was interesting switch. And we went to Sweden, we presented their opera, it won Music Theatre Now award. It got invitation to Shanghai, then to New York. We got positive reviews in New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and then we came back home to Lithuania, and everybody started speaking that maybe what we are doing is quite important, interesting, and it's worth some attention and support. So in order to, get some recognition at home, we had to get firstly some recognition abroad. And in fact, this switch and this award was an icebreaker for our organization. It took us about 5 years to reach this from the very beginning, but that award, it changed a lot in the thinking how to develop contemporary opera and all this field in Lithuania. So if before that our festival was in the focus, in the center of our activities, now we had to dedicate a lot of time to international touring with that Cashier Opera Have a Good Day, and we didn't have time to organize our festival each year. And besides, we needed much more time to develop new opera. So if before that it took around 1 year to create new opera from scratch, later we understood that quality needs time. And now the productions that we develop are created in like at least 3 years, sometimes it's 4 or even 5 years. And in a way, it's a luxury, but our company works with independent artists, and these operas, it's not the onlyest thing what they do in their lives. They have several projects. They are doing several projects at the same time and have many different responsibilities. But I think that the time, it is very important element developing new idea, developing new opera, working in a group of different artists, and we have to dedicate time developing that idea. We have to invest in that time in order to get quality. So for since the beginning, now in our company exists as production house, not community of young crazy artists anymore, although we have like database of artists that we collaborate with, and it's different types of artists, different instrumentalists, singers, not just opera singers, but also amateur singers, jazz singers, whatever singers, people who are making sounds with their voices. And now we position ourselves as a production house because at some point those enthusiasts who were very much involved in the processes, they needed maybe more motivation, like financial or maybe more artistic attention. But as the idea of the organization was to develop the genre, we had to switch to that idea of having production house which works with different types of artists and develops genre with and develop genre having absolutely different directions of that development. So now we exist for 15 years. Since the beginning, we have produced around 60 new operas, 60 from scratch. Not all of them were successful, but many were successful. And beside that, we have repertoire in which, in our current repertoire, we have 12 productions. Some of them were presented already for like 83 times, or 330 something times, or 50 times, or recently we had in last year in October we had new premieres, and these premieres were presented just for 5 or 6 times, but some of them were already presented abroad. We are doing residencies, workshops, educational programs. We also we are recording CD, vinyls, we are doing audio recordings of the productions that we produce and create vinyls, kind of phonotech of contemporary Lithuanian opera. And we organize national and international tours of our productions. We are taking part in different international networks, organizing first step of Baltic Contemporary Opera Network. And for me personally, for 10 years, it was quite a struggle to develop such type of organization. Like I had so many possibilities to give up. I had to have different so-called side jobs or just normal jobs in order to develop this company. But for several years, I do just this work. Organization already have some people who are working for this organization as normal workers, like not freelance workers. And yeah, so it's possible, and this is maybe important to know how it happened. But now I want to switch to artistic side of this bar because it's the main thing which motivates me. So I think if it was possible to do it in Lithuania, of course it took some time. It might be also possible in any part of the world to develop and to work in contemporary opera field. So maybe now I will share the screen and show you some examples of the productions from our current repertoire. These are absolutely different types of operas and or so-called operas. This is something we had to go through, our negotiating or always discussing with musicologists, especially musicologists or some art historians who were talking that maybe this is not really opera what you are doing, but okay. Share the screen. So
don't forget to share the sound as well so that we can hear everything.
So now I'm sharing the website of our organization, and one moment, as it is quite comfortable to see everything in one place. So let's start with opera Have a Good Day. This was our icebreaker who helped us to get into the international market. And previous month we had like 80th, 81st, 83rd, and 84th presentation of this performance, and it was absolutely sold out without any additional advertising efforts. So Opera Have a Good Day was created by three Lithuanian artists, Vaiva Grainytė, Lina Lapelytė, Rugilė Barzdžiukaitė. You can see some photos. It tells the story about 10 singing cashiers who are sitting and singing about their daily life. Opera is created just for voices and piano. As a pianist, we have just pianist who acts as a security guard. And who are the singers of this piece? It's a big variety of different singers. We have some professional opera singers, retired, who have a huge vibrato molto, you know, but it was needed for some specific personage. We have opera singers who are not retired. We have professional choir masters, jazz singers, or some amateur singers, and how these singers were selected for these characters. First of all, librettist Vaiva created some specific characters, for instance, hysterical mom or rude bimbo, or some art critic who can't find a job in art criticism and needs to go to the supermarket in order to earn some money. And maybe let's, and what is interesting is that for this production we need some white box space, which we organize. You see this on the picture, how we organize. We make it as a supermarket. Cashiers are placed on the high platforms as a monuments. We place audience lower. But besides, we had some opportunities to place this opera at traditional Teatro Italiano. For instance, this picture, this opera was presented in Rome, Teatro Argentino, Teatro di Roma. It was also possible. Here we had to cut our lighting installation above the audience, but that Baroque aesthetic was very good contrast with the cashiers on stage. So maybe let's see the trailer. And what is also interesting, after the premiere 12 years ago, we were struggling and trying to get money to repeat this opera once again. And only after it won the award, we had the chance to travel all over the world. And the second piece of the same team, it's called Opera Performance Sun and Sea. It won Golden Lion at the Venice Biennale later. So let's see trailer of the opera Have a Good Day.
snaudžia pasukos. Kiaušiniai išsirikiavę tyli.
Labą dieną, ačiū, geros dienos, labą dieną, ačiū, geros dienos, vargodai kasos klavišai, nuolaidos akcijos, pilna šlapimo puslė, yra mano giminė, tai išreikia iš šokolado, tai noriu nieko girdėti, visas pasilieka, nes išsidėlioja kelias, todėl tenka gerai, kad
Toks nieko visai prie bajerio aukštas buvom susitikę, žinai, nuvarėm į bowlingą, nu. Aišku, prasidėjo, nu jo čia tipo aš vedęs, bet tu man labai patinki.
Kiekvieną rytą atsikėlusi nusišypsau į veidrodį, labai padeda, kiekvieną dieną yra to paremti.
Augalės riebalų, dešinės, polisarė, dimos, kiek palangoj, ošter, kur ondo savo, norėčiau sėdėti, tebai, koriduotis, užvaikti velino.
Yeah, and as you see, there is no any specific set design. It's just an environment of some, I don't know, storage, and the all setting is created with the help of that atmosphere of the storage, and also with the field recording, which was made in real supermarket. So you enter the space, you hear the sound of the supermarket, and you are like a participant of that game. So this is one of the productions that is still in our repertoire already for 12 years, and our icebreaker, which helped us to develop the whole system of development, new productions. Let's go to another example. Maybe I will show you comic strip opera Alpha. This opera, as I say, it is the most operatic opera in our case, because it has traditional bel canto opera singers, 2 singers, 1 actor, and instrumental part is done by accordion, electronic guitar, and also live electronics. And the idea of this comic strip opera came to director, stage and costume designer Dr. Gora Parazit. She is a Lithuanian multi-artist who is doing many different things. And it is very interesting combination, because opera, as traditional opera itself, is very expressive, and comics is very intensive and expressive genre. And this match of opera and comic strips worked very well. And the setting of the opera, set design, it looks like an open book. If you see this picture with the blue screen, it works as an open comic strip book. And on the stage, on the platform, we have personages of that comic strip book who are acting, and they're singers and actors. And yeah, and we have huge LED screen where we have different pictures, and as in comic books, we have opportunity to change them quickly, and also bubbles as in comics with the translation. And maybe I should show you some trailer in order to get the flavor of this piece. Yeah, let's see, it's very short. Yeah, so this opera flirts with the pop culture and even music. You probably heard a lot of beats and yeah, very attractive to young audiences, although we have age restrictions because many erotic images are used in this production. It is still touring in Lithuania and abroad, and recently we have published we have released the comic strip book which tells the story of this opera with the vinyl, so that you could listen to the sounds of the opera and follow the story of this piece. Okay, let's go to Bad Weather, another version of so-called opera. This piece was created by Lithuanian artist, sound artist, composer. Recently, he became quite active in drama, theater, performing arts. Arturas Blumšteinas. He was very much interested in Baroque theater noise machines and also sound machines of futurists called intonarumori. And once we were talking with him about this, and I suggested him to recreate those noise machines from Baroque era. Wind, rain, thunder machines. You can see them on these pictures. For instance, this one, it is rain machine. Grains are inside, you are turning that circle and you have sounds. And this machine, it is wind machine. So you have fabric, you are turning and getting the sound. And also there are, for instance, this long box, it's a thunder machine. You have round stones inside, and you're just changing the directions, and those stones are making sounds as real thunder. And so we created small orchestra of Baroque theater noise machines. There are still, I think, three theaters in Europe which are using these machines for so-called sound art during the performances. So we went to Stockholm, Drottningholm Slot Theater, which still have that, but in Baroque era, all these apparatus, they were like hidden backstage, and you couldn't see it. You just could hear the sound of rain or thunder. But in our case, we put them on the stage, and they become main objects of the piece. So we recreated these machines. It is a small orchestra, and Arturas have created several versions of this. We have theatrical, but our recent one is gallery version. You can see some pictures here. And yes, it is a very nice sound art performance. And we have also created, yes, here you can see pictures of the theatrical version. A big mess and a lot of dust. Yeah. Some more. Many grains are used and different beans. So let's see trailer. Maybe let's see trailer, little excerpt of this piece from gallery version. It was premiered at the Lithuanian National Gallery of Art. Yes, so. I like of being in between, like theater, music, is that like we are in some area which is not connected with traditional opera, but at the same time we can feel connected with different areas. For instance, recently we have received invitation from Puppetry Theatre to present Puppetry and Object Theatre Festival to present this piece. So it's nice to see opera as an interdisciplinary art form and to connect yourself. Maybe this piece, I do believe it can be presented even in the frames of some dance festival. Yeah. Okay, let's go to another example. Let it be the filler. What is also important to say that most of the times when we start when we start developing some idea, we think that it will be an opera. And in this case, one stage director, Mantas Jančauskas, he mailed me and proposed one idea. Then we decided to go to some coffee just to talk about what we can do together. And we agreed that we should create opera, and somehow we decided let's create opera about the Holocaust. Maybe you've heard that before the Second World War in Lithuania, there was a huge population of Jews, and as in many countries of Eastern Europe, many of them were killed during the Second World War. So we had many ghettos in Vilnius and Kaunas, in different cities. So we decided to create opera about this topic. And what is important for me that when we start developing some idea, I understand it as some journey that we will go through. And for instance, before that, I didn't know a lot about the Holocaust, about the history, our history, or before we started developing Baroque theater noise machine, I knew about Baroque theater noise machine, but in a way it was the beginning of new journey. So each piece, each new opera or so-called opera, it's a new journey going through which we learn a lot of new people, a lot of new ways of creation. We discover many new things. We know a lot of historical facts. So in a way, it's a big journey. That's why it's a big responsibility where you go, which path you choose. So in this case, we decided to create opera about the Holocaust. And I suggested that director to cooperate with two composers, because somehow it was a new challenge. Let's work with two composers, not one. And we invited two composers, then we invited one dramaturg, and we were like team of 5 people already. And for us, it took about 2 years to understand how we can do this work, because everything what we tried to connect, like on one side we have topic of Holocaust, of killings. On the other hand, we want to create a piece, an art. And in some way, everything what we tried to develop was so meaningless. Like, how can we talk on stage? How can we sing about Holocaust on stage? It doesn't work. It's so meaningless. So, but one day, the idea came to the director and dramaturg that maybe it should be audiobook. And maybe this audiobook could be organized on the territory of the former ghetto of Vilnius. And maybe those narrators who would tell the story should be those people who survived. And we agreed that it was a nice concept, but at those times there were just 3 people left in Lithuania who survived in Vilna ghetto, because it's, many years passed. And our team went to Israel, made interviews with those people, collected those interviews, and then it became a base. Their voices, their stories, their memories became a base for the sound walk. And it's important that it is not guided tour. It's something like some poetical musical story. Yeah, and very, very sensitive. So from the idea to create opera about the Holocaust, we came to the audio walk, which was organized on the territory of the former Vilna Ghetto, and those people who survived in this exact place, they shared their stories. For now, just two of them alive. The rest passed away because of the age. But in a way, we even somehow with this piece, it's not just art piece. In some way, we help to we took part in the process of of collecting memories, saving those memories for the future generations and even for us. Yeah, so we have, let's see some pictures. And the format of this piece, it's a very luxurious piece because we have only 5 spectators or participants, and they are guided by 2 guides. We have created special phone app for this production in order to navigate the soundtrack and to play the set of soundtracks and play exact soundtrack in exact spot, because tempo of each group is quite different. So you can see the pictures how people are walking around. They're working through the territory of Vilna Ghetto. And the title, the filler in Lithuania, it is called glaistas. It is the material which you use building houses when you cover walls. So it's like a metaphor of covering our history, covering building. So with this piece, we want to scratch a little bit that history and see how can we remember, or how can we relate ourselves with what happened then. Yeah, so these are the pictures, and let's see the trailer. Yeah.
Were you afraid? Could you explain? One more question. А вы помните, какой ваш день был в гетто?
Там не было дня. На работе,
Shoemakers, architects, engineers.
из работы в лагере.
Structure,
Не было,
the ghetto,
ничего не было.
This piece is logistical nightmare because the audience is going through different places. We have to get all the keys, all the codes, and all the agreements from some locations in order to go through them, and each time to check all the keys and codes we have. What is important, that even recordings, because creators, they were recording not only the interviews in Israel, but they also created a musical part which was performed by, for instance, one vocal ensemble or vocal ensemble of kids, or some violinist, saxophonist, or some other sounds in some spaces. And many of these recordings were done with special binaural head in order to get that spatial sound of those specific spaces which we are passing on during that journey. Yeah, so it's a big piece, and we have done more than 300 performances. We are approaching 400, and it's always sold out, and people are like, oof. Yeah, it's strong piece. Okay, what else? Let me introduce you maybe Olympian Machine. Yeah, and with the filler, with sonic experience, as I call it, it's a real estate. We can't transport it because it is site specific. So, but at the same time, in some cases, this piece becomes a reason for spectators, for audience to come to Vilnius. So it's like, in a way, attraction tool to attract audience to come to Vilnius. This piece is called Sound Installation Performance Olympian Machine. It is created by the same artist, Arturas Bumšteinas, who did Baroque Theatre Noise Machine production. And quite funny story of creation of this piece. He invited 12 people to come to audio recording studio and repeat the text which he would read for 10 minutes or so. And he didn't mention what kind of text that would be. And everyone agreed, like, okay, I can do that. And then when each person came to the studio, Arturas started reading to them summary of Homer's Iliad, which you probably know. There are many names, many, some stories, something, some lines of narrative which are overlapping each other. Like, I don't know how you can repeat it if you do not know the piece itself, Homer's Iliad. So many people, there were few who knew that and tried to repeat, but most of the participants, after they were left in the studio on their own for 1 hour, they tried to say something on those topics which were in Homer's Iliad. It's like war, some connections, or some relations between people, or maybe even about love, or about men's power, women's power, whatever. And as the result, Arturas collected all those stories, and he created like polylogue. 12, imagine, on the stage you have 12 different design speakers. Different design is very important part of this installation. So it's like 12 different people, 12 different design speakers, 12 different personages. And each speaker, it is that person who was in studio. And he made a audio edit of that story and place each voice in each speaker. So you have installation of 12 different speakers talking on the same topics, but having different opinions. And there is a special light installation, so that when you have some speakers speaking, you have light on it, so you can follow the story. And it's interesting that after the premiere, somebody in the audience asked if it is an opera, and Arturas said, of course, look, you have one aria, another aria, you have chorus of at least 5 speakers speaking on the same topic. Why it's not opera? It has some narrative, So this is one of the opera examples, and in this place, I would like to remember what American composer Robert Ashley says about the opera. What is an opera? And he said that opera is a voice in a landscape. So this is absolutely what was done in this piece. It was voice in a landscape. And interesting thing that after the performance, many people from the audience, they were going on stage and making pictures with those speakers as if with some, actors, characters of the productions. Yeah, so this is another example of the opera, and maybe one more thing I will present you. This is a musical performance sports group. It was premiered quite recently, last year in October. The beginning of this piece was one librettist, writer, Gabriela Labanauskaitė. She came to me and said that, recently I was I was playing with my basketball team because she's doing sports, playing basketball, and somehow I heard that this sound, this environment of that basketball hall sounded as some musical piece, oratoria. You can listen all those balls, that sounds of your shoes, and all, or sounds of some fans who are supporting you, and it was really intensive and very interesting soundscape. Maybe we should create opera about sports. Yes, let's do that. And then we invited other artists, composer Gailė Griciūtė and visual artists or interdisciplinary artist Victoria Demirel to join our team, and started developing this idea. And one of the residencies we did, and it's important to mention that when we are developing each production, we try to organize several residencies. So it's not like process where you're constantly doing something. Yes, you can do something all the time, but you need some spots where you come together. You do not have anything around you, like not any other responsibilities. You are dedicated just to this topic. So from time to time, we do such residencies where we go somewhere, when we go somewhere. And one of such residencies was organized in one Lithuanian village in wooden house. And in that wooden house, there was, in one room, there was physharmonia, such old piano, which you have to pump pedals in order to play with the keyboard. It's like old version of organ. And somehow this movement, this idea inspired Victoria to combine musical instrument with trainers. And she said, maybe we should try to create some organs trainers. And we said, yes, let's do that. And on this picture, you can see a set of instruments. It's a combination of trainers and organs. It took us about 3 years to develop these constructions, but it is a set of 6 instruments dedicated to different types of muscles. And like in real team, you have to do sports, and by doing sports, you're making sounds, you're playing music. Each machine has different soundscape, different harmonies created for it. And you can even operate, like in some cases, close one pipe or make it lower or higher. So it's a big science, but we have never seen anything like that anywhere. And what we have on stage, we have 6 performers who are making sports, doing sounds, and singing about our society, about our wish to be strong, perfect, our aim to get better results and everything, but at the same time, it's in a way criticize that we forget just to be ourselves and to live our lives. Yeah, so maybe a few more pictures. And they are not just doing sports and making sounds, they are also singing and also playing with these instruments using different extended techniques. Yeah, so this is it, and maybe let's see the trailer, how it sounds. You will hear how these machines sounds here. Okay, and maybe shortly, two more examples. Just a few days ago, we have performed another quite fresh production, which we call Corporate Dystopia, Probiotic Ecotopia for Voices. And it's also important to say that each time when we initiate some production, we think that it will be opera, and we call it in our working emails that opera, this and that, but when we are approaching premiere and it is time to communicate this new piece, new production to the audience, we try to find the precise wording for each piece. That's why you can see sound installation performance, Baroque theater noise machine performance, or comic strip opera, or spatial opera in the dark, or opera for 10 singing cashiers, or corporate dystopia, probiotic ecotopia for voices, or one more piece that I will talk about. We called it concert with choreographic tale. So why it is very, very much important to to find precise wording, because it is connected with the expectations of the audience. If we would call everything operas, then, it's unclear, because all people are coming, they do not know what we are presenting. We know, but they don't. And it's always very much important to provoke, to create right expectations. That's why this wording is very, very much important. So for this piece, we invited to one quite famous Lithuanian slammer who works with this kind of poetry, and also he is very good, he has big experience in the advertising, to enter performing arts scene. And together with composer again Arturas, they created this corporate dystopia, and the inspirational material, it was ancient Lithuanian folk songs, multi-part songs. We call them sutartinės. It's intangible heritage we are proud of, and there are some people who are very much aware of those sutartinės, multi-part songs, and they're very sensitive when people are using them, rethinking them in their contemporary. But we took it, and in a way, this piece, it is like corporate event where ensemble choir of 14 people, they're trying to sell a new service of transformation of our souls to new bodies. Yeah, it's like corporate event, yeah. And maybe let's see the trailer. It would show you and help to get the flavor of the piece, musical flavor. Yeah. sorry for strange screen view, but the main idea was to get the sound. It sounds very much as those old traditional Lithuanian folk songs, multi-part songs like canon is used there, but they sang absolutely contemporary text of those people who are advertising new service. So it's a very interesting combination. Okay, and maybe the last example of so-called operas, productions that we produce. This piece was also recently premiered. It's our collaboration with the best contemporary music ensemble in Lithuania called Synesthesis. And we just decided, let's do something together. Yes, let's do. Then we invited one composer who is originally Greek, but now he is based in America, Panayotis Kokoras. And he created music which sounds like, which reminds you sounds of animals, but in fact, it's not electronic music. It is something which is performed by real live musicians. So you have clarinetists who can play who can play music, make sounds as if hippo would do, or some other sounds. And yeah, and we placed it in a huge space. We created some big plastic objects which are inflated during the show, and they are if several huge hippos. Yeah, and in very nice, interesting space it was done. Yeah, and the space was filled in with the fog so that you can't see what happens like in 3 meters. And aesthetically and acoustically very tasty piece. So let's see the trailer. So, to conclude, a little bit more of me speaking to you. What I really like to do is to work on operas with people who have never done anything with opera or musical theater. That's why quite often we invite like film directors or architects. And I think that knowledge of how to do something, it's not necessarily the most important thing. Sometimes freshness or the wish to discover something, you know, that curiosity of discovering is much more important working on some production. Yeah, and thinking about the opera as a genre, when we start creating opera, we always think that it will be opera. For us, it's like a key which helps us to open the production. But we always think about opera, like if you remember the etymology of this word, what is opera? Latin or Italian meaning of the genre of this word means work. So it is something that combines different forms of art, but it's not necessarily opera is bel canto voice or some ingredients which we can see the opera houses. Just even at the very beginning, when opera was not opera, when it was drama per musica at Baroque times and in Italy, it was something absolutely different to what we have in repertoires of the big houses. Just in some centuries, it became very popular, and opera needed bigger spaces. Bigger opera houses were built for this genre, and these bigger opera houses, big architecture, needed bigger voices, needed these bel canto voices. And at some point, of course, genius, talented Verdi, Puccini took the floor and created many good operas. And now somehow we have lost that understanding of the genre, thinking about the beginning of the development of the genre. And we, most of times, not like we, but society, connects opera with something which we had in 18th, 19th century. Yeah, but I understand the opera remembering how drama per musica was created. And also, to conclude, I will say one thing, that recently I discovered one article dedicated to the book, which will be published quite soon. It is about death of the opera. I don't remember the right title, and there was some excerpt of what Bob Wilson said about opera, and maybe I should show it to you. Do you see this? Bob Wilson's handwriting. So I really love that. When I read it, I said that this is absolutely my cup of tea. So I will just read this. And this is what Bob Wilson said. The following is an excerpt by Robert Wilson from the forthcoming book, The Last Days of the Opera, edited, published. So, since the very beginning of my career, I have always called my works operas. At first, people questioned why I called my early stagings operas, because they were all silent. I was thinking about opera in the Latin sense of the word. Opera meaning work, meaning opus. In this sense, all of the arts come together. Architecture, light, dance, music, literature, drawing, painting, design, and sculpture, all are included. Somehow, in the last centuries, we have lost the original meaning of the Latin word, and opera is though to mean something primarily musical. Music affects our emotional sense. Literature inspires our intellectual sense. Images inspire our imagination. What we see is as important as what we hear. I have always strongly disliked the idea of theater decoration. Theaters should be architectural. The two primary ways we communicate with each other is by what we hear and what we see. In this forum that we call opera is a place where people of different political, economical, social, educational, and religious backgrounds come together for a brief moment and share something. This forum serves as a unique function in society. The need to congregate is a part of human nature. This need has always been and will always be. Yeah, and the last is not so much important. Yeah, so this is it. What Bob Wilson said is absolutely my cup of tea. I think about opera as he does, and we will keep going. And if you are interested in other productions, as I've mentioned, we have produced around 60 operas through those years. I have presented you just several examples and quite briefly, so you can always contact me. So thank you. Maybe you have some questions.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think this presentation was very, very interesting, inspirational, and just overall very exciting to see the ways that you create operas, and especially this last quote, I think, connects directly to what Musicville as a project is trying to achieve, and what we hope we will convey to the audiences, that opera isn't something that is just reserved for the theater and is very prim and proper, but in fact, opera, as the original meaning of the word, is something that connects all types of art into something that moves people. So thank you so much for your presentation of your work. And I do have one question. We still have a few minutes left to kind of answer some questions, I hope. So my question is, connecting back to the beginning of your lecture, your presentation, when you were talking about what it takes, kind of the time and the energy and the money and everything to make a production happen. So considering that Musicville as a project is still quite new and at the beginning of our process, do you have any advice maybe for artists and participants on what they can expect or what they can look out for at the beginning of their journey with Musicville and with opera?
Oh, it's so difficult to, suggest something. I would just suggest you let it flow and be as free and as creative as you can be, and work on the ideas that you like, that you really like. It would inspire you for sure. Maybe with people who you like and whose art you like. Don't struggle working on operas. It should be fun.
Great, having fun. That's amazing. It's great advice. Does anyone else maybe have any questions or comments? Carola, you?
I actually do. I'm very curious, especially when you were creating the instruments even. How did you go like for the process? I mean, I'm just very practical thinking here. You start with something, you get a certain funding, you have an idea, and then you create instruments, and maybe that was not in the budget, or that was not even considered time-wise. How do you go with these development steps?
So at some point, artists had to invest a lot of their time, and like they had choice. On one hand, they could do everything fast and have their fee, and that would be a reasonable fee. On the other hand, they can make everything slowly and divide that fee into bigger amount of months, which becomes very small fee. But in that case, they have much more time. But now, as we are supported finally by the government, we get support for 3 years as an organization. We have to apply with the strategy to offer some projects. But beside that, last year we got status of the Vilnius City Contemporary Music Theater Production House, which also means a little support for 3 years. So this gives us more freedom, and I can plan our activities. For instance, this year we have 2 premieres, but besides we have development process for 3 projects, and I count that, okay, premieres is this part of budget, a development process is this. For development, we have this part of budget. So I divide it officially into parts, and normally it's like 2, 3, 4 years.
Thank you.
What maybe I forgot to mention, as I understand, your project is dedicated to so-called green opera or sustainable art. So in a way, art is not sustainable. or everything what we do as human beings, it is not sustainable. But if we compare this type of art with traditional opera houses, which has around like 500 employees or 600 employees, for instance, in Lithuanian National Opera, there are more than 600 employees. When we have operas with I don't know how many people or how many hundreds on stage, when we have in the whole just 1,000 people. So maybe this type of operas is quite sustainable type of art comparing to traditional one. Yeah, so and also what is also important that in our case we want to improve our sustainability by like dedicating more time to each creative process, but beside that take care of each production after the premiere. So for instance, I told you that one is like approaching 100 presentations, so we can work, we invest some particular amount of money, and then we work with this production. We represent it in Lithuania, abroad. So it's also sustainable way of thinking in the fields of arts. And beside that, traditional opera is not so mobile comparing to these types of these small scale operas or so-called operas. So it's much more sustainable than traditional or so-called traditional.
Mm-hmm. Just so Carmen had a question, and then Sarah. Go.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment because I have to go to open the exhibition now. I really loved your lecture. It was really inspiring, and I think it's going to be really useful for us, the ideas and approaches that you shared. And specifically, the thing about giving names to performances, I think that was really a nice suggestion and practical thing to think about, especially because we will be having 3 acts of opera. So probably each of them is going to have a bit different format. And example about how you signify a little bit the format and what audience is it for, in a way, I think it will be really useful for us. And thank you, Ana, and thank you everybody. It was really nice.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a comment about the sustainability of opera or art. I think that art is sustainable. Maybe it's not sustainable in a material way, but it's a sustainable in a intellectual or I don't know, idea way. And I think that it's also very sustainable how you work with people on a long term and how you make all the economy behind it. So yeah.
If I may react, I absolutely agree with you that art is sustainable, but we live in our own bubbles, and there are many different bubbles around us, and there are huge amount of bubbles where people think that art is not sustainable at all. It is not meaningful, and somehow we can reach them, and maybe they can become part of our bubbles, and we can and in this situation the arguments that this type of art is much more sustainable than big opera could be a very, very strong argument.
Okay, so if that's all the questions for now, Vasco has one more. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, I just have I just want to thank you because you answered all my questions that I had in mind. But yes, it was a really great presentation. And as a musician composer, I was doing a lot of years actually more in other musical fields. I mean, also working with orchestras and bands and theaters and dance, but not yet opera. But somehow, for the last 2 or 3 years, this word opera is just ringing in my head. So I'm happy that so my idea is how I was wondering maybe about maybe in future doing something is totally in line with what I saw from your productions, and it's totally inspiring and giving me, you know, kind of confirmation that that's the right and very interesting way, I think, for many artists, not only musicians, but you know, all the artists that can join this. And I believe this Musicville is a nice opportunity for all of us to learn in this way. So thank you again.
Great, thank you. So, and I would like to thank you for inviting me. I wish all the best for your projects. I will try to follow information, how everything is going on. Maybe I will come somewhere. Yeah. So
yes, hopefully we'll see you at one of our productions sometime, or maybe we can go to Lithuania.
Good. So let's keep in touch.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time, and everyone watching this either on YouTube or on our website. Don't forget that until 15th June, there is still time to apply to become part of this, wherever this journey takes us in the end. Thank you so much to everyone, and concluding the session.
Follow the project on our website and social media platforms: musicville.org, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.